Whenever the temperature gets too high, the girl's body begins to melt. When the night turns too cold, her entire body freezes solid. That is because she is a candle person. Only at dawn and at dusk can she and her father come outside and move freely. Glim's mother once went out to pick mushrooms at 3 in the afternoon. She was scorched to death by the sun. From that day on, Glim's father forbade her from going out during the daytime. But even so, the mischievous Glim often sneaked out behind his back. This time, in order to witness the guardian succession ceremony, she carefully planned an escape. She set up mirrors in her room ahead of time. The moment the sun appeared, its light reflected onto her body, reviving her limbs that had frozen stiff during the night. Before her father had time to thaw and wake up, she ran straight into the shadows of the forest. As the sun and the moon appeared in the sky at the same time, the ceremony grounds were split in two by light and shadow, and Glim stood right at the boundary between them, watching the guardian succession ceremony. The planet Glim lives on was once a world shrouded in total darkness. That was until a warrior of immense strength appeared, who chained the sun with an iron link. Another warrior returned from the world of dreams with the moon. Each of these warriors built a movable temple upon the backs of sacred beasts. Every day, the temples dragged the sun and the moon forward without rest. And so the cycle of day and night was born. Later, people came to call these warriors, who guarded the sun and the moon, the guardians. They were responsible for maintaining the balance and order of the world. The title of guardian was passed down from generation to generation. Whenever a guardian's life was nearing its end, they would search for a successor to inherit their duty. And the current guardian's disciples, Mune and Sohone, were the most promising candidates at this very moment. Sohone was a strong, well-built stone man, brimming with confidence. Whenever he saw a beautiful woman, he would deliberately show off his charm. Mune was far more reserved and low-key, but he was just as determined to claim the position of guardian. The current sun guardian Zolal stepped forward. He raised the mirror in his hand, reflecting a blinding beam of light. The light shone directly onto Sohone. This signified that the sun had chosen Sohone as the new sun guardian. However, trouble arose on Mune's side. The moon's envoy did not choose him. Instead, the choice fell upon Mune, a night spirit hiding in the bushes. The crowd erupted in shock, yet the guardians decided to respect the moon's will, and officially announced Mune as the new moon guardian. Mune was clearly unwilling to accept this outcome, but with the decision already made, he could only storm away in anger. And this gave the lurking lava monster Necros the perfect opportunity. In his bid to seize the sun, Necros sent out the pale snakes, creatures skilled at manipulating hearts and minds. They sought out the resentment-filled Mune and whispered poisonous words into his ear. Under the pale snake's influence, Mune chose to ally himself with Necros, determined to take back the sun and the moon from the newly appointed guardians. Meanwhile, the former moon guardian Yule was guiding Mune through the moon temple. At the center of the temple stood a glowing sacred tree. Living upon its branches was a swarm of small white spiders. The threads they spun were connected to the moon itself. By plucking and playing these silken strings, Yule controlled the movement of the temple and guided the moon along its path. Beyond that, Yule also told Mune the origin of the moon. Only then did Mune learn that the moon came from the world of dreams. It was the very first guardian who, through the dream gate within the temple, brought the moon into this world. After explaining everything, Yule stepped outside the temple. His body then began to change, until he finally transformed into a towering moon tree. It was only then that Mune realized this place was the final resting ground of all past guardians. When a guardian's life reached its end, they would turn into a moon tree, continuing to protect this land forever. As a newly appointed guardian, Mune had no experience at all. He tried to move the temple, but mishandled the controls. The temple spiraled out of control. Desperate to fix his mistake, Mune ignored the spiders' warnings and frantically plucked at the threads. This only made things worse. The temple veered completely off its course and caused massive destruction on the ground below. Even worse, the threads dragging the moon began snapping one by one. Mune desperately pulled at the remaining strands, but in the end, as the last thread broke, the moon was flung away into the distance. Deprived of the moon's divine power, the temple collapsed where it stood. On the other side, Sohone, who was controlling the sun, witnessed everything. Just as he was feeling confused, Li Yun's voice reached his ears. Li Yun urged Sohone to teach Mune a harsh lesson. Sohone thought Li Yun had a point. On his very first day as guardian, Mune had already caused a disaster of this scale. There was no way he could let it slide. Ignoring his assistant's attempts to stop him, Sohone left the Sun Temple without authorization. But the moment he was gone, Necros's two little demons, Mox and Spleen, snuck into the temple. They secretly stole the sun. And all of this was witnessed by Glim, who had been hiding nearby the entire time. Meanwhile, in his attempt to retrieve the moon, Mune comes up with a clever idea. He forcefully throws a small spider toward the moon. The moment the spider touches it, it quickly wraps the moon several times with its silk. And just like that, Mune finally manages to bring the moon back. But what he doesn't know is how to return the moon to its proper path in the sky. At that moment, Sohone finds Mune. Faced with Sohone's interrogation, Mune can only do his best to hide his negligence. Just then, Glim's voice calls out from outside the temple. She tells Sohone that the sun has been stolen. Sohone is stunned by the news and rushes back to the Sun Temple at once. But it is already too late. All that remains on the ground are the collapsed ruins of the temple. Having obtained the sun, Necros immediately extinguishes its blazing flames. He then orders Mox and Spleen to guard it closely, waiting for it to burn out completely and lose its divine power. Sohone places all the blame on Mune. In his anger, he snatches the moon from Mune's hands and gives it to Li Yun for safekeeping. All of this left M deeply shaken. He turned around and ran into the nearby forest. Disheartened, he returned to his people, only to find that his home had been completely destroyed. Not only do his people hurl harsh words at him, even his own father is deeply disappointed. It is at this moment that Mune finally realizes his mistakes. He swears to restore everything to the way it was. Sohone prepares to set out to reclaim the sun. Glim insists on going with him. Because she is a candle person, only by staying near Sohone can she avoid freezing solid. Just then, Mune catches up with them. He decides to help Sohone retrieve the sun. Meanwhile, Li Yun soon realizes something is wrong after obtaining the moon. Without the sun's power to sustain it, the moon gradually begins to lose its divine energy. Not only can it no longer rise into the sky, it also rapidly shrinks and grows dim. As the moon completely disappears, the glowing plants on the ground quickly wither away, and the moon temple spirals entirely out of control. The whole world descends into chaos. Mune and Sohone also notice the strange changes around them. They quicken their pace. According to records in an ancient book, they arrive at a massive abyssal pool leading to the depths of the earth. Glim hesitates. The icy water would freeze her body instantly. One small mistake, and she would shatter to her death. Mune assures Glim that he will get her safely to the underground. And so, Mune carries the Francine Glim on his back and follows Sohone into the deep pool. Along the way, they are attacked by a gigantic octopus. At the critical moment, a flash of light appears and saves them. To their surprise, their savior is Phospho, an ancient moon guardian. After speaking with Phospho, they learn that they have taken the wrong path. The deep pool does not lead to the Earth's core at all. Phospho guides them to the true entrance to the underground. He then places his tentacle on Glim's body, restoring her Francine form. Phospho goes on to explain Necros's past. Necros was once a powerful sun guardian, but after being tempted by the pale snake, darkness took root in his heart. He sought to claim the sun for himself. It was the sun guardian of that era who intervened, defeated him, and cast him into the abyss beneath the earth, ending the crisis. As for Phospho, he had hidden away out of fear. After the battle ended, he was stripped of his title as moon guardian and exiled to the deep pool. After saying all this, Phospho turns and leaves. Mune suddenly sees the sacred beast dragging the moon temple around in a frenzy. He decides to stop it. They split up. Sohone continues toward the depths to find the sun. Mune takes Glim with him to calm the rampaging sacred beast. He climbs along the beast's body all the way to the top. At that moment, Mune unexpectedly discovers that the glowing powder emitting from his arms seems to possess a magical calming power. It can soothe the sacred beast's frenzied mind. He immediately waves his arms, releasing even more luminous dust. Once the sacred beast is calmed, Mune rushes into the temple. There, he awakens the unconscious Li Yun. Through their conversation, Mune learns that the moon has completely died. But he refuses to give up. He decides to follow in the footsteps of the first guardian and travel to the world of dreams to bring back a new moon. Glim chooses to go with him. They open the dream gate in the floor and jump in without hesitation. But the moment they enter the dream world, they find it filled with terrifying nightmare visions. They are surrounded by a swarm of nightmares. At that instant, Mune swings the glowing dust in his hand. To his surprise, the luminous powder drives the nightmares away. That is when they notice a small spider holding up a massive moonstone. And so, using the tools left behind by the ancient guardians, Mune climbs onto the moonstone and carves out a brand new moon. After enduring countless hardships, the bond between Mune and Glim deepens rapidly. They dance gracefully together in the dream world. But just as they are about to kiss, a powerful pulling force suddenly surges from the dream entrance. It turns out that Li Yun has opened the dream gate, accidentally interrupting their tender moment. Seeing that Mune has truly brought back a new moon, Li Yun is filled with jealousy. Yet in the end, he finally acknowledges Mune's identity as a guardian. Now that the moon has been recovered, it still cannot shine, because it lacks the sun's light. In order to make the moon glow once more, Mune decides to rush to the Earth's core at once, to reunite with Sohone. Meanwhile, although Sohone successfully reaches the depths, he is completely surrounded by countless pale snakes, just as his mind is about to be fully corrupted by them. At the critical moment, Phospho appears in time. He immediately wraps his body tightly around Sohone. Once before, he had chosen to run away. This time, he refuses to retreat again, at the cost of his own life. He restores Sohone's clarity of mind. Just then, Mune and Glim arrive. After reuniting with Sohone, the three of them set off immediately to continue their search for the sun. By now, Nikros has learned of their arrival. He blocks their path with his minions. Sohone decides to stay behind alone to hold Nikros back, but the difference in their strength is overwhelming. In just a few moves, Sohone is knocked to the ground. At the same time, Mune is stopped by the little demons. Glim seizes the opportunity and makes her way toward the extinguished sun. Her companions are trapped in grave danger. Only by raining the sun can they be saved. Ignoring Mune's desperate pleas, she insists on blowing toward the sun, but after just a single breath, the intense heat causes her body to begin melting. Even so, Glim refuses to stop. In the end, the sun is successfully rained, once again radiating dazzling light. By the time Mune reaches her, Glim is already on the brink of death, yet she has no regrets. In her final moments, she still encourages Mune, firmly believing that he will defeat Nikros, no matter how unwilling Mune is to let go. Glim closes her eyes forever. Before Mune can even begin to grieve, Nikros suddenly appears behind him. He raises his foot, ready to crush Mune. Fortunately, Sohone appears just in time and blocks the attack. As the sun slowly rises, the moon follows closely behind. Soaring into the sky, a mysterious power instantly surges into both Sohone and Mune. Empowered by this immense force, Sohone violently hurls Nikros to the ground. Mune then seizes the chance and drags Nikros into the dream world. Within the dream realm, Mune is the absolute ruler. From Nikros's body, he forcibly pulls out a massive pale snake. The pale snake tries to resist, but Mune subdues it with ease. It was this pale snake's parasitic corruption that had turned Nikros into what he became. As Mune dispels the pale snake's evil influence, Nikros finally regains his former self. With a smile, he thanks Mune for saving him from his lost path. Then, he transforms into stone, and the place where he falls turns into a beautiful world filled with birdsong and blooming flowers. After all the crises are resolved, Mune carries Glim's body back to the surface. Following the image in his memory, he carefully reshapes and restores her body piece by piece. No matter how perfect his work becomes, Glim never wakes up. Mune breaks off a corner of the moon and places it gently in Glim's hand, hoping it can accompany her forever in his place. He then leaves in quiet sorrow. As the sun and moon are restored to the sky, this mysterious planet regains its former vitality and life. And at that very moment, a miracle occurs. Bathed in the gentle light of the sun and the moon, Glim comes back to life. Seeing the glowing moon fragment in her hand, she knows that Mune has defeated Nikros. Without hesitation, she runs toward Mune with all her strength. Now, she no longer fears the sun's scorching heat, and can bask freely in its light. Glim arrives at the boundary between day and night, quietly waiting for Mune to come. Mune soon spots Glim as well. At the end of the story, two young people who love each other finally find their way into each other's arms.